Hey guys, what is going on? This is Blue, and this is something new. So, as you can see, I'm on my Ranger at the moment, and, well, we're gonna do a bit of a build guide video. Like I said, I don't normally do these things. Let me move my mic for a second. I don't normally do this sort of thing, but with the new patch coming around, there's a lot of new players in SPVP, and, well, let's just give it a try anyway. Now that there's a lot of new stuff, I might as well try a new type of video. So, like I said, guys, this is something I haven't really done before. If you like it, let me know down below. If you don't like it, let me know what I can change to make it better, and if enough people hate it, then, well, you'll never see this again. So, anyway, let's get to the build. What this build is, it's a Power Ranger, in essence. The new patch has added some things to the Ranger that can make it a very survivable and a very good option in terms of power. I've been running this build for about 2 to 3 days now. Like I said, this build is still kind of in its infancy, so some things may change very quickly here. I'm going to leave a couple things open up to your decision. There's a couple variations that could come into play here, too, but I'll explain all that as we get later on. The original concept for this build actually came from another player. There was a Ranger in Arkham that I was up against at a team queue the other night, and after the game, again, I was like really impressed with how much damage this build was doing just on a Power Ranger, because I'm not really used to that sort of thing. So I had asked him for the build, and he gave it to me. I don't remember his exact name. All I know is he was a Ranger from Arkham, so shoutouts to that guy for the original concept for this build, and as well, I've sort of adapted it from there. But anyway, let's get into the build itself. First off, let's start with the traits. We open the PvP build tab here. It is going to run with a split of 6-0-2-6. We'll start off by looking at Nature Magic here. Now, this trait here, the first trait, Survival of the Fittest, is the most important trait in this entire build because, again, it gives you the sheer crazy amount of sort of utility that you're going to be getting, and I'll explain all of that a little bit later. So what this trait does, for those that are just coming back to the game and maybe new to it, is every time you pop up a survival skill, it gives you 8.75 seconds of Fury, which, again, for those who aren't aware of that either, it's going to increase your critical damage by 20%. It also removes 2 conditions. So again, that in itself is very good because if you're running with enough survival skills, you just have a stupid amount of active Conde cleanses, so it's really good in that regard too. Moving down from that, we're taking two-handed training. The weapons we're running with this build are, again, a greatsword and longbow. We'll go over that in just a second, but it runs with two-handed training. What that does, again, chance on hit to give you 4.25 seconds more Fury, so just more Fury being added to the pool there, and also gives you about a 5% damage increase on greatsword there. There are some other options you could take in this tree. Enlargement, for example, is another one, but considering that you will be running with Signet of the Beastmaster in this build, basically what all that's going to do for you, at least in my opinion, is once you drop below 24% health, you're just going to paint a huge target on yourself, saying, hey, look, I'm huge and I'm about to die, so come kill me. So that's why I'm avoiding that one. Evasive Purity is another option too, but in general, I don't really like to rely on using my dodges to cleanse Condes. I like to use my dodges to dodge abilities I should be dodging, so, like I said, I don't want to avoid the trait there just off of principle, but if you like that sort of thing, you may certainly go for it over the 5% damage and Fury that you'll be getting off of this trait here at the moment. And the last trait is Nature's Protection. Very good defensive trait, 7.25 seconds of protection every time you take more than a full 10 seconds, or a full 10% of your overall health pool, as well as on a 30-second cooldown, so just very good for dealing with thieves and other very high burst players that have the potential to kill you very quickly if you're not paying attention. Moving up to Wilderness Survival now. We're only going to take one trait in here, obviously, because we've only got 2 points in it, and it'll be running with Wilderness Knowledge, which will reduce the survival skill cooldowns by 20%. That's a pretty obvious choice, considering that we're running with Survival of the Fittest, so we don't really need to explain that one. Moving up to Marksmanship now, we're going to be running with Keen Edge. The reason we're running with this, and again, this is a power build, but this is a ability that actually puts Condes on the enemy. In fact, it'll give you 5 stacks of bleeding on your next attacks, or just, you know, your next 5 attacks will proc bleed. The reason we're taking this, however, if you can't already see in the tooltip, is that this is also a survival skill, and although technically speaking it's being procced through a trait, it is going to proc it as if it were a utility skill, so you're still going to get that 8.75 seconds of Fury, as well as the 2 condition removals there. For the same effect. And there's no internal cooldown. Apologies. I think there's the 36-second internal cooldown on this, but I haven't really tested anything like that. I'm just coming back to Ranger now for the new patch, so I haven't really tested something like that. But again, it's still very good in the fact that you're still gonna get those effects there just by bringing someone below 75% health. Moving up from that, piercing arrows. All arrow attacks are gonna pierce targets. Main reason I'm going for this is because you're with longbow. And if you're missing like 1 or 2 attacks, it's gonna be a lot of your damage going away there. And it really hurts too, especially if you're up against like an MM Necromancer or a Spirit Ranger, because of the fact that, hey, look, these things are just going to naturally eat my stuff up now. So, considering those things are fairly popular in the meta, I've opted to go with the piercing arrows because of that fact, just to avoid that little bit of an annoyance we come against. Another option you could take here, obviously, is going to be Eagle Eye, which increases your longbow damage by 5%, similarly to the trait down here in Nature Magic two-handed training, but it also increases the range of longbow by 300, bringing it up to 1500 total range. But again, I personally just like to go with piercing arrows arrows because of the fact that it eliminates any chance that my damage is not going to connect to the target just by something standing in the way of it. And then last but not least, we're running with Signet of the Beastmaster because of the fact that we're going to get that big damage boost, and as well as Signet of the Wild is going to be a very good utility that we'll talk about why we're taking in just a second. Now moving up to the equipment tab over here, where we're again running with Greatsword and Longbow. The sigils I'm running with at the moment, again, these are fairly open. I'm still playing around with these pretty heavily. I've only been playing with this build for about, 2 to 4-ish days now, so like I said, I'm going to leave a lot of this open to you, but these are just the choices I have made for the time being. It's running with Sigil of Hydromancy as well as Sigil of Bloodlust on the Longbow. Generally speaking, when I'm going for stomps, I find myself in the Longbow there just because I'll be able to knock back people that are going to try to come over and stomp me, and as well I can get more AoE off on them in the Longbow too. So it's generally speaking why I put the Bloodlust on this weapon instead of the Greatsword. And as well, when we go to the Greatsword itself, I'm also running with another Hydromancy in here, but I'm running with Intelligence too, just so I can get the next 3 attacks, getting a 100% critical chance for maximum damage. My rune, I'm running with Runes of the Traveler. Again, good mobility increase as well as, just in general good stats increase coming across the board there. Now, in theory, you could do something else here too. You could also swap Signet of the Wild out and go for Signet of the Hunt to get that 25% speed increase naturally, but you're kind of wasting a Signet slot at that point, because if I were to go with Signet of the Hunt, personally speaking, I probably wouldn't take Signet of the Beastmaster. I'd probably go with Remorseless or maybe even Read the Wind too. I haven't actually bought it yet, as you can see, so I haven't had a chance to test that yet, but if you were to go with that option, your first thing that you're going to do is you're going to swap this out for Remorseless, because I don't know, it's just not that good of an active effect in my opinion. And as well, like I said, you're basically going to be wasting a utility slot that you're just going to have sit there and be passive, so I don't like to go for that sort of thing. But again, if that's your cup of tea, feel free to go ahead down that route. And then the last thing here is going to be the Amulet. We're running with the Berserker's Amulet because damage is damage, and damage is good, so that's why we've chosen to roll with that. Now moving on to the bar itself, first going to take a look at the pets and why we chose those pets. At the moment, I'm running with the double dogs. I've got the wolf as well as the Cretin Drakehound. So this is more, when I think of my pets, I think of more when I take them into a team fight. This is personally me, again. Is the fact that if I were to say run with a bird to get a little bit more damage, which is something I was testing, I've noticed that, again, you take the bird into the team fight, it's going to die within seconds, and if you don't have your swap of them ready to go, then, like I said, it's going to die, and it's going to increase your pet swap 1 on 2 by, like, 3 times the amount it usually is, so generally speaking, I like to go with the dogs because they're a little bit more durable. They still do decent damage within themselves, and they also have a knockdown that they can do on themselves there, so just a little more CC that you're going to be bringing out. And the CC that the 2 pets individual bring out is very good as well. The wolf, for instance, can actually increase the duration of your downstate by quite a few seconds because the fear can still be propped off while you're in the downstate. So if the enemy player's not paying attention, he'll get feared away, and he'll probably keep you alive for about 5 to 10 more seconds, depending on, who you're up against. And then we're also running with the Cretin Drakehound too, which has the Immobilize Howl. Again, that can be used to lock down opponents and get some damage off onto them, as well as just general getting some CC off. Moving on now to the bar itself. The heal, I'm running with Troll Unguent. If you do decide to run this in team queue, and again, my recommendation is to keep this build in solo queue for the time being. Not entirely too confident in its ability in team queue just yet. I've started to run with it. Organized teams can usually make pretty quick work of me, but it's not completely worthless. But like I said, I generally am keeping this in a solo queue for the time being. So with that in mind, when I'm in solo queue, I'm generally speaking a much more selfish players. So I've run with Troll and Gwent in that regard. But if you're in team queue, you can also run it with Healing Spring as well, because of the fact that you'll still be able to use leap finishers, whatnot, and blast finishers, and anything else your teammates will bring you to play in order to get that additional healing off to your teammates. Now, obviously I'm going to be running with 2 survival skills here, running with Muddy Terrain as well as Lightning Reflexes. You could also, again, taking a look at some things, you could run with Quickening Zephyr instead of Muddy Terrain, but I don't like the fact that it gimps my healing, especially with that I'm running Troll and Gwent, and my heal is on me for a long duration, so I don't really want to give myself in that regard. And as well, I'm not running with Signet of Stone, or Sharpening Stone rather, because A, I'm not in a Connie build, and B, I'm already going to be proccing that through one of my traits. So that's why I have chosen to take Muddy Terrain instead of the Quickness one. But again, moving on now to our third utility choice, running with Signet of the Wild here. What the Signet does when it procs on you, for those that don't know, when you pop it off, it's going to make you big. That is increasing your damage. It doesn't actually say by how much, but according to the wiki, it says by about 25%. That seems pretty accurate, so I'm going to agree with that for the time being. But like I said, there's actually not a tooltip there to tell you, so we don't know entirely. But again, as you probably saw there too, it's also going to give you stability, so you can also use it to get a stomp and or res off too if you need stability in that regard. So just giving you, again, a little bit more utility. And then last but not least, the ultimate, we're running it with Entangle at the moment. That as well is a survival skill, so you're still going to get that Fury as well as Connie Cleanse. However, at the moment, it's bugged. By the time you're watching this video, more than likely it'll be fixed, but for the time being, at least according to the tooltip, and and I believe it's doing this in the game itself too. It only cleanses 1 condition, it should be cleansing 2, and it's only giving you 5.75 seconds inferior, which should be giving you an additional 3 seconds for a total of 8.75 seconds. But on that, again, very good for CC, and in general, just a very annoying ultimate for your enemies to deal with there. So again, talking about the build itself, it's a Power Ranger. Lots of damage. In terms of how the damage itself does, it's not phenomenal per se. Like, it's not Dagger Pistol Thief or Pistol Whip or, you know, Mesmer Shatter or anything like that. However, it's very good. It's a very good, consistent amount of damage that you can constantly pretty much bring out into play. Great Sword, you're going to be heavily reliant on your cooldowns. That's the main thing with the damage of this build too, and the fact that I've chosen to run with, and rather rationalizing the fact that I've chosen to run with piercing arrows, is the fact that this is a very hard-hitting build. It's not like Thieves and other classes where it's a lot of quick attacks that may not be the most hard-hitting, but they're coming very quickly, so they sort of peter you down over time. This build, because of the slow attack pace, relies very much on hard hits, so you want to be guaranteeing you're getting those hits off, which is why I have chosen to run with that trait there. That's another thing you have to consider with this build too, which is also the reason why I found at least it's kind of weaker to Thieves and Mesmers that have the ability to jump around and just get away from you, because you're going to be wasting you're going to be wasting your big damage abilities on them as they port away from them, so those abilities are going to be wasted, and in general, it just makes it a little bit harder to take down targets that can jump around you a lot easier, like Mesmers and Thieves. But again, I'll be showing a lot more of that when I go into the solo queue game. I'll be showing in this video, hopefully. But again, other than that, this build has a stupid amount of utility. So going over everything it does have, you've got 3 active Condi cleanses, 1 passive Condi cleanse, as well as, again, all these will grant you Fury as well, that you'll be getting through the trait there whenever you take a target below 75% health. So you've got, in that regard, 4 Condi cleanses that you can pretty directly control. You've got stability and a big damage increase you can use every 60 seconds over here through Sigurd of the Wild. You've got a pretty darn decent heal there coming out into play as well. You've got a crazy amount of immobilization and cripple. For instance, you've got one immobilize coming here from Tangle. You've got another immobilize coming out from here from Muddy Terrain, and assuming you land the initial hit. And then you've got your dog as well that can do another immobilize. And as well, your other pet too, your wolf, can do a 2-second fear on your opponents as well. You've got more cripple that'll come into play there from Barrage. You've got a knockback that comes up from point blank shot. You've got another knockback that comes out from counter attack on crippling throw. An enemy has to attack you in order for this to work, granted, but still it's another knockback. And you've also got a daze/stun depending on where you hit your target with hilt bash as well. And on top of all of that, you've also got stealth from Hunter's Shot. So yeah, the utility itself makes this build very much worth it, and probably a very annoying thing to deal with. I've not come up against it much, but when I have, I found, like, wow, this build's a pain in the butt to kill. But yeah, so it's a very good build, and that's pretty much it for the build overview, guys. Like I said, it is generally weaker to classes that can move around you and classes that can get the damage on you very easily while sort of, you know, kind of like confusing a bit, like Mesmers and Thieves. They're probably the 2 weakest things I've found it weak enough to. But anyway, we're going to go to a solo queue game now, show you the build itself. We may have to do that in a separate video, because this video has been going on for like 12 minutes now, so we'll probably do a second video with the solo queue clips, and I'll explain a little bit more about how the build works and, you know, just how it plays in the solo queue. But again, guys, if you have enjoyed this, let me know what you think down below in the comments, and as well, be sure to subscribe, like, and do all that other YouTube stuff. And yeah, guys, we'll see you next time. Hope you've enjoyed the video, and have a good one.